Hi, I'm Richard. I'm the Archdeacon of West Cumberland, and this is a short training session for surrogates for marriage licences. This is a lovely brass plaque given me by George Howe, who was previously Vicar of Holy Trinity Kendal and then Archdeacon of Westmoreland and Furness and then Bishop's Chief of Staff. It's lovely, isn't it? So a quick reminder of why we have licences at all. Just as a driving licence tells everybody that you're safe to be on the road, so a marriage licence tells everybody that it's okay for you to be married. And you remember that we're checking various things. We're checking that the couple are not already married. That would be bigamy. Checking that they're not related. That would be incest. Checking that they're old enough, that there's no coercion or compulsion, and that they're of sound mind. And those last three are to do with being able to make a good consent, because of course a marriage is a contract between the couple with us, the clergy, as the chief witness. You'll remember that there are 4 ways to get that licence, to check those things. First of all, banns, which worked well in the Middle Ages when people were very settled and it was geared for people who are not literate, because you read things out loud in church, but still works okay today, particularly in a county like Cumbria where people are quite settled. And of course the questions are asked not only at the banns or in front of the surrogate or whatever, but also twice at the wedding itself. Second way is a Superintendent Registrar certificate, which is granted, as it says, by the Superintendent Registrar, and usually that's used for weddings superintended by the Registrar, but it will work for church as well. You would need to send a letter to the Registrar showing that you intended to marry this couple at a particular parish church on a particular date, and it would also need to describe how they fulfil the qualifying connections, which we'll come to later. There's an ecclesiastical or common licence, which is what we're going to talk about, and then there's a special licence granted by the Faculty Office of the Archbishops of Canterbury. It not only permits you to get married, but it also permits you to get married in a place not normally used for weddings. So that might be a military chapel, a school or college chapel, or probably most frequently a hospital or hospital chapel. It's more expensive and more complicated, as you probably know. So we're going to talk about the ecclesiastical or common licence. One of the things you need to remember is that if one or both of the couple are not British citizens, then you need to send them to the Superintendent Registrar. To date, it's been not EU citizens, but I think with Brexit we'll just need to be doubly careful about that. There have been cases of clergy getting caught up in wedding scams, and it's all been very painful. So if in doubt, check with the Registrar or a colleague surrogate or an archdeacon. But as I say, generally we're sending to the Superintendent Registrars so that they control the bits that are a bit more contentious. And as I said before, you'll need a letter. They'll need a letter from you saying that you intend to marry them in such and such a church, such and such a date, and how they fulfil the qualifying connections. The ecclesiastical licence must be sworn in person, of course, so they have to come and see you. I always prefer to see both of the couple, but one would be okay. The couple will need to bring, and you'll need to tell them before they come, a birth certificate, a passport, a driving licence, evidence of an address, so something like a bill, a utility, council tax, whatever. It's getting a bit more complicated these days because of people doing everything online, but I'm sure they'll be able to produce something, and you will eventually photocopy these. I'll go through the forms in a moment, but let me give you some tips first. It's very important to get everything ready so that you look organised, and I frequently forget to do this. So you'll have the affidavit, which is the words they're going to say, the oath. You'll have a Bible for them to swear on. You'll have the paperwork, so there is the schedule, the affidavit, the information they're going to give you. There is the licence, and this is a photocopy of a licence, so I am going to write on this and then shred it. I always give the couple a nice envelope to put everything in, so they can take it away safely. A pen to write with. And quite often it's worth having a diocesan directory or something like that nearby, so that you can check on the address of the person who's going to marry them. Once the couple have signed everything and got everything from you, then they'll take this away in the envelope, and they should really give it to the incumbent who's going to marry them straight away. The vicar will then keep it safe for them until the wedding, and you should give it back to the couple on the wedding day, and then they can keep it safe as a memento of them getting married, and maybe put it in a wedding box or whatever they've got for that. I did once have a couple who, in a fit of clearing everything up and being neat and tidy, actually binned the licence before they'd got married and had to come back and get another one, which was irritating for them and me. So do remind them to keep it safe. Once they've gone, you will have photocopied their ID documents, you'll photocopy the affidavit, and you will keep the photocopies of the driving licence, passport, proof of address, etc., together with the photocopy of the affidavit in a folder. You will apply the principles of keep or bin, so you'll keep it for a year and then get rid of it. And you will post off the completed affidavit, the original, back to the registry at Sinton's in the Cube in Barrack Road in Newcastle. And you'll put in a cheque for the registry fees, and I'll come to that in a minute. As I say, if you have any questions or you're not sure about something, it's best to ask someone else, one of the archdeacons, a colleague surrogate, or the registrar. For the fees, do have a separate fees account, and you'll pay the registrar by cheque or backs out of that. The licence can be granted very quickly, of course, even on the day itself, because it only takes about 30 minutes, although no doubt the couple will have other things on their mind on the day, unless something's gone catastrophically wrong and they really do need a licence from you. But you can reassure them that it's all pretty straightforward and simple. I think the other important thing to say is do ask the couple some friendly questions, put them at their ease, explain what's happening to them and why it's happening, ask them how it's going, check that everything's okay, do they have any questions. Don't forget, this is a really important experience for them, and they need to feel comfortable and they need to feel okay. Okay, all of that is quite generally applicable, but there's a bit extra, isn't there, because of the pandemic and so on. So first of all, coronavirus precautions. If they're showing any symptoms, they must comply with government guidelines and they shouldn't come to see you. You can meet outside. Now we're moving towards the autumn and winter, that's a bit more difficult. But if they're inside, then of course they must be distanced. You may want them to wear masks, or they may want to wear masks, and they may want you to wear a mask. But you will need to get them to remove the mask to check that they are who they say they are, and to check that they match their photo ID. You should wipe surfaces before and after. They'll be sitting at a table, no doubt. Get them to use their own pen, but they've probably forgotten one, so have a spare one ready that you're not going to use. Wash your hands before and after. Have the doors open through the house so they don't have to touch anything. And probably open the front door to them as they come in and shut it yourself, and open the front door for them as they go so that they're not touching your door. I think that's everything except for going through the licence itself and then the oath. So, first of all, here is the licence, the affidavit, and on the top line you are going to put the couple's names, man and woman, or woman and man, doesn't really matter, and then their address underneath. If there are different addresses, the appropriate address underneath the appropriate name. If they're living at the same address, of course, that doesn't matter. Go through this bit. They are making an oath. First of all, they're wanting a license to get married. They're declaring that the particulars set out in the schedule are true to the best of their knowledge, information and belief. That there's no legal impediment of kindred or affinity or otherwise, or any proceedings in court to bar such a license. So you're checking that. As we've mentioned, you need to. If they're a minor, you need to check that the appropriate consents are in place. Well, you've already checked that they're old enough, or if they're not, they do need to bring somebody with them, really. I've never come across that. And they do need to understand it's a criminal offence to give false information in the schedule and in the affidavit. An affidavit is just an oath sworn in front of people, of course. They will sign here, and then they will also sign at the bottom, at the back there, and you will sign there. Now, the thing I most often forget is that either to get them to sign twice or me to sign once. So don't forget, me sign once, they sign twice. That's really important. The schedule. So first of all, it asks the name and parish church where it is going to take place. Secondly, the proposed date of the marriage. Thirdly, the name and address of the officiating minister, and that's why you might need the directory or something to check the address of the person. You then repeat the information on the back, the man's full name, the woman's full name, their addresses, which parish they live in, and you may need to check that in a church near you, because very often they don't know. And so perhaps have a computer switched on somewhere and just be able to check that. Check that they're British, and you check their date of birth. The next section just checks their marriage status. Are they single, a widow or widower, previous marriage dissolved or annulled, civil partnership, and so on. And you've got to tick a box for the man and a box for the woman, so there should be 2 boxes ticked there. Finally, there's the qualifying connection, and it's the things you're familiar with, that they've lived there for 15 days immediately before the wedding of the white licence, on the electoral roll, that it's their usual place of residence for 6 months, that they've got habitual attendance for Church of England services in the parish, or baptised or confirmed in the parish, or a parent married in the parish, or a parent with the usual place of residence, or habitual attendance by a parent, or a grandparent married. Now, the one thing I think that we just need to spend a moment on is habitual attendance. A previous registrar, in discussion with me, said that if somebody came to church once a month for 6 months, that would feel like they were habitual attenders. Perhaps they come to a family service or something like that, if in the days when churches had family services. So, I have been prepared to be a bit flexible about that, where the couple have lived far away, and maybe they can come once every 2 months for a year. That would be still the 6 times. That would honour the spirit of the thing. And I have even had couples where they've promised and kept their promise to keep on coming back afterwards to fulfil all of the habitual attendance. Strictly, probably we shouldn't be doing that, but it is actually a mission opportunity, because certainly I have had couples who've really been very faithful at coming back whenever they came into the area and could come to church. They would do, and kept going for years afterwards. So I think on the whole, if we're sensible about the way in which we play it, couples are. I've had couples who've, as it were, played it and not turned up at all. It's very difficult to know what to do about that, isn't it? So, I think that's everything. Do phone up if you're not sure about something, and thank you for all your work.